Another day, another story. Welcome to Scary Stories, where we bring you tales of terror and horror that will chill you to the bone. In today's story, we follow Emma, a young woman who is forced to confront the dark secrets of her family's past when she returns to her childhood home in Italy. What begins as a simple visit to see her ailing father quickly turns into a nightmare, as Emma encounters an otherworldly entity that is connected to an old radio in the house. As she delves deeper into her family's history, Emma discovers a dark legacy of witchcraft and demonic pacts that threatens to consume her. With no one to turn to but herself, Emma must find a way to banish the darkness that has taken hold of her family's home. But as she fights to rid herself of the entity's grip, she realizes that the only way to succeed may be to confront the darkest parts of her family's past. Join us now as we take you on a journey of terror and darkness, and discover the terrifying truth behind the old radio in Emma's childhood home. The radio was an antique, with intricate carvings on its surface and an eerie green glow emanating from within. Emma couldn't help but feel drawn to it, as if it was calling out to her. As she approached, the static on the radio grew louder and more intense, until suddenly a voice broke through the noise. "Emma," the voice whispered, "you must leave this place. It's not safe for you here." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. The voice was familiar, but she couldn't quite place it. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life, and a figure appeared in the static. It was her father, but he looked different somehow. His eyes were dark and hollow, and his skin was pale and clammy. "Emma," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You have to leave. It's not safe for you here." Emma tried to reach out to her father, but her hand passed right through the static. She felt tears welling up in her eyes as the figure on the radio disappeared back into the static. Suddenly, the door to the room slammed shut, and Emma was plunged into darkness. She could hear something moving in the shadows, but she couldn't see what it was. Her heart pounding, she backed away slowly, feeling her way towards the door. As she fumbled for the handle, she felt something cold and slimy wrap around her ankle. She screamed and tried to pull away, but the grip only tightened. Suddenly, a figure materialized in front of her, its eyes glowing a sickly green. Emma tried to run, but the figure was too fast. It closed in on her, its mouth gaping open to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth. As the creature lunged forward, Emma closed her eyes and braced for impact. But suddenly, the room was flooded with light, and the creature disappeared into thin air. Emma opened her eyes to see her mother standing in the doorway, a look of concern etched on her face. "Are you okay?" she asked. Emma could only nod, too shaken to speak. As she stumbled out of the room, she couldn't help but wonder what other horrors lay in wait in her childhood home. Over the next few days, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She would catch glimpses of strange shadows moving in the corners of her eyes, but whenever she turned to look, there was nothing there. One night, as she was lying in bed, she heard a faint scratching sound coming from the wall. At first, she tried to ignore it, but the sound grew louder and more insistent. Finally, unable to take it anymore, She got out of bed and walked over to the wall. As she approached, the scratching stopped, and she could hear something breathing on the other side. She put her ear up to the wall and listened, her heart pounding in her chest. Suddenly, she felt something cold and slimy press against her ear, and she screamed. When Emma's mother burst into the room, there was nothing there but a dark stain on the wall. Emma tried to explain what had happened, but her mother dismissed it as a trick of the light. But Emma knew what she had felt, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong in her childhood home. As she lay in bed that night, she heard the scratching sound again, louder this time. As she approached the wall, she could hear something moving inside, as if trying to break through from the other side. Suddenly, a hand burst through the wall, its fingers long and gnarled. Emma screamed and tried to pull away, but the hand had a grip on her, pulling her closer to the wall. She could see now that the hand was attached to a dark figure, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. As the figure pulled itself through the hole in the wall, Emma could see that it was covered in writhing tentacles. She tried to run, but the creature was too fast, its tentacles wrapping around her legs and pulling her to the ground. Emma screamed and thrashed, but the creature only tightened its grip. As she felt herself slipping away, she could hear the creature whispering in her ear. "Welcome home, Emma," it said. "You're never leaving." Emma woke up in a cold sweat, gasping for air. It was just a nightmare, she told herself. But as she looked around the room, she realized that something was different. The walls were covered in strange symbols, glowing with an otherworldly light. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the scratching sound was back, louder than ever. Emma stumbled out of bed and tried to make her way to the door, but her legs wouldn't obey her. She could feel something pulling her back, something that wanted her to stay. As she turned back to face the room, she saw the creature standing in the corner, its tentacles writhing in the air. Emma tried to scream, but no sound came out. The creature advanced on her, its eyes glowing with a sickly green light. Emma closed her eyes and braced for impact, but suddenly, the room was flooded with light. Emma opened her eyes to see her mother standing in the doorway, a look of concern etched on her face. "Are you okay?" she asked. Emma could only nod, too shaken to speak. As she stumbled out of the room, she couldn't help but wonder if she would ever be able to leave this place alive. The next morning, Emma decided to leave her childhood home and return to New York. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong in that house, and she didn't want to risk staying any longer. As she was packing her bags, she stumbled across an old diary that had belonged to her great-grandmother. Curiosity getting the best of her, Emma began to read. She soon discovered that her great-grandmother had been a powerful witch, who had made a pact with a demonic entity in exchange for great power. As Emma read on, she realized with a growing sense of horror that the entity described in the diary sounded just like the creature she had encountered in her childhood home. Suddenly, everything began to make sense. The strange symbols on the walls, the scratching sound, the glowing eyes, It was all part of some dark magic that her great-grandmother had unleashed. But as Emma prepared to leave, she knew that she couldn't simply abandon her family's legacy to this darkness. She would have to find a way to defeat the creature once and for all. As she began to research ways to combat dark magic, Emma discovered an ancient ritual that could banish the entity back to its own realm. It was a risky plan, but she knew it was her only hope. With trembling hands, Emma prepared the ritual, chanting the ancient words that would send the creature back to the darkness from whence it came. As she spoke the final words, there was a blinding flash of light, and the room was filled with a deafening roar. When Emma opened her eyes, the creature was gone, and the room was bathed in a peaceful silence. She knew that she had succeeded in banishing the darkness from her family's home. As she looked around at the empty room, Emma knew that she had come face to face with the darkest parts of her family's history. But she also knew that she had emerged victorious, and that she would never again be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. As the story of Emma's encounter with the otherworldly entity comes to a close, viewers of scary stories are left with a sense of unease. The tale serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes, the darkness that haunts our past can come back to haunt us in the present. But even as the story ends, the sense of tension lingers on. What other horrors lurk in the world, just waiting to be uncovered? Will we be ready to face them when they emerge? For viewers of scary stories, the tale of Emma's encounter with the supernatural is just one of many that serve as a haunting reminder of the darkness that lies just beneath the surface of our everyday lives. So as the screen fades to black, and the credits roll, viewers are left with the eerie feeling that perhaps, just perhaps, the darkness is closer than we think. And as they click off their screens and prepare for bed, they can't help but wonder what terrors the night might bring.